This is Fat to Fierce. Welcome to the Confidence Chronicles. I'm your host, Amy English. Join me on this empowering adventure towards a healthier relationship with food, body, and self, one delicious bite at a time. Welcome to Fat to Fierce, the Confidence Chronicles. That was a very dramatic entrance, wasn't it? So, a couple of things. By the way, I'm your host, Amy English, and this is episode 37. So, I have a lot on my mind today, so we're going to see how this goes. But what I was going to say is I've been using a new tool to record the podcast and to have video because I just think it's more fun. So if you're watching this on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, hello. I don't think the video is showing on YouTube for some reason, and I'm not sure why. So, however, wherever you are listening to this, if you're getting the video too, fantastic. If you're not, that's okay too. And if you want to see the video, then I would recommend definitely catching it on Spotify, possibly even Apple. All right, housekeeping aside. So I'm using this new tool and I have to remember to start speaking when the little timer counts down. And I realized that last week for episode 36, number one, I didn't use my microphone. And number two, I didn't wait for the countdown. So it started and it was not the very first word that I said. I got cut off. And after 29 minutes, I was not about to go back and re-record. Because here's the thing. I've been doing these episodes now just kind of like, we'll call it freeform, where I just pick a topic and go. I really rarely have notes or an outline or anything like that. And what I have found by doing it this way is it's a lot more fun. It's not as serious. It's not as high pressure as I was making it before. And if it's one thing I've learned on this entrepreneurial journey, it's important to make things less pressure, okay? More fun. We're allowed to have fun at work. We're allowed to find joy in the things that we do. In fact, it's really important, and it's going to make life a heck of a lot better when we find more joy and ways of doing things that bring more joy. Now, does that mean everything is going to have joy? No, listen, there are still things that are part of our responsibilities in life as adults, things we must do that don't bring joy. Okay. Listen, going to the dentist, I don't know. It just is not a joyful experience for me. I have tried little things to make it more joyful, but at the end of the day, it still sucks. But it's one of those things that if I want decent teeth and to take care of my oral hygiene, then I'm just going to have to go. Right. So yeah, there are still going to be things in life that aren't particularly joyful, but when we can sprinkle in our own joy where appropriate, I say go for it. So that was my long-winded way of explaining that this has been more fun. All right. What are we going to talk about today, friends? So I have two ideas. And I know which one I'm going to go with, but I'm going to share, I'm going to share the other one as a little bit of a tease into episode 38. So we've been on this theme of our body, right? Bodies, making friends with our bodies, body acceptance, body appreciation, all the body things, body image. And one of the options for today was to talk about how we hang on to weight, how we hold on to weight on our body. And I think this is a very important topic. And I'm going to put a little placeholder in it for next week in episode 38. So I do hope you will come back for that. And listen, be sure to follow along on this podcast journey so that you get notified every time a new episode is available. All right. So yeah, We're going to talk more about that next week. And now I have committed myself to this topic for episode 38. Okay. So there we go. Why I've changed my mind for today for episode 37 is because it's something that's very fresh. And while I want this podcast to be an opportunity to share tools and to share ways to do things and ways to heal and provide all that good stuff, which is super important, I also want this experience to be one where I can share things in real time that are happening or that have happened as a way to kind of explain how I work through them, how I handle them. And by sharing that, hopes that it will provide inspiration, support, just knowing that you're not alone, that you're certainly not the only person going through something like this. Because and here's why. So when I was first looking to overcome stress eating, so when I had that light bulb moment that I call it back in 2013, and it was this like, okay, I need to figure out how to stop stress eating. I didn't know at the time that there were millions of people who struggled with stress eating. I didn't know anybody else in my life at that time who struggled with stress eating in the way that I did. And I carried around a lot of shame about my habits with food for a really long time, because people, I talked about it. I talked about my stress eating, and I would get comments from people, just going to say people. I would get comments from people like, well, just don't eat it. Or, just don't do it. Just don't keep the food in the house. Don't buy it. And here's what I want to say to that. Okay. As someone who has recovered from emotional eating and binge eating, it doesn't matter what you have in the house. Okay. I can share many, many examples of times when I went for stale crackers that were in the pantry, a loaf of bread. I can specifically remember taking things out of the freezer because I wouldn't buy the food. I knew which food to not keep in the house. I knew which food to have my husband hide from me. I've talked about that before, hiding the Halloween candy, hiding the Easter candy. I used to take the Easter candy when we lived in Buffalo. I used to take the Easter candy to my mom's house and keep it at her house so that I wasn't tempted to eat my children's Easter candy. Okay. But even though I did that, it wouldn't stop me from binging on whatever was in the house. Okay, that's my point in this. So this whole idea, well, just don't buy it, just don't have it, just don't have access to it, just don't keep it in the house, just don't eat it. I mean, I could scream because it didn't matter, right? And so where'd my point go, you guys? So the idea of that was really frustrating, and it was very embarrassing. And so I held a lot of shame, and to the point I just wouldn't talk about it with people anymore, and even the doctors, right? Because again, at the time, my doctor who I was seeing at that point of my life, her solution was for me to get weight loss surgery. And I had explained to her, that's not going to help this obsession with food. That's not going to help me wanting to binge or me wanting to, go to food. That whole behavior, because listen, it's not about the food, all right? I mean, it is, but it isn't. It's a behavior. And I knew that behavior was going to translate or could potentially translate into something else. I knew that I had to change the behavior. I needed to change this habit, this relationship with food, all this stuff. And so I declined the weight loss surgery because I knew that ultimately that was not going to be a fix for me. Sure, it was going to help me lose weight probably, but I wanted more than that. I wanted to reclaim my confidence. I wanted to heal my relationship with food. I wanted to take my power back from food. I wanted to stop feeling like so out of control around food and like it was calling my name, right? I wanted all that to end. And so that's why I chose this particular path, right? Anyway, my where I'm going with this and why I decided to choose this particular topic for episode 37 today is because it was embarrassing. Okay. And so it didn't get talked about a lot. And I certainly had a really hard time finding a solution. Hence the reason I started dabbling with my life coaches, as I've explained in previous episodes. And then, worked on this as I was going through life coach training. And that's what ultimately helped me heal. And this is now why I want to help other people heal and all that good stuff. So, this is one of the reasons why I like sharing the situations, the circumstances that happen in real time. And now I'm going to get into the meat and bone. What's the saying? I'm going to get into the nitty gritty. Let's just use the meat and potatoes. That's what I was looking to say. All right. My goodness. Okay. Told you I have a lot going on up here today in my brain. So last week we had Hurricane Helene. And if first of all, if you live in an impacted area, if you have family or friends, anyone you know in an impacted area, I do hope that they're doing well. I hope that they are getting the relief. I mean, thoughts and prayers to all the people impacted. And where I am, I'm north of Atlanta in Georgia. And I mean, we'd been hearing about this for days, right? We were prepared to experience this hurricane. And it caused a lot of stress, as you can imagine, especially if you are someone who has been through this type of situation before and this type of experience. And we've been living in Georgia now for almost 8 years, and we've had these situations before. We've had, hurricanes, and I'll just share this quick little story. So when we first moved to Georgia, and the very first day we went to explore my kids' elementary school. It's kind of one of those situations like, what have we gotten ourselves into here? Now, I'm from Buffalo, New York originally, so I'm built to handle snowstorms, especially lake effect snow. Okay. I know how to handle that. I am not as equipped to handle tornadoes, hurricanes, tropical storms, things like that. And so when we went to go visit their elementary school, we actually experienced our very first real tornado warning. And we were in the hallway, brand new family, new to the area. We were just there to meet the teachers and their classes. They hadn't even started school yet. And there we were in the middle of the hallway with everybody else writing out a tornado warning. Terrifying. Okay. Terrifying. Thankfully, everything was okay. That was back in 2017. 2016, actually. Ooh, yeah, that would have been December of 2016. Anyway, so last week was highly stressful, and my husband had been traveling for work. We needed to get him home. He was supposed to come home Thursday night, which was when the storm was supposed to hit. Well, when the storm was hitting, right? And so, thankfully the kids were on fall break, so they were not in school. We were home. In fact, it was Thursday afternoon. I was going to take them to the mall to do a little shopping, and it was just downpour, because before the hurricane hit, we had another rainstorm that was here, which got the ground all nice and soggy and wet, which was supposed to have like this huge impact with Helene and all this other stuff. So long story short, we did not make it to the mall because it was raining too hard, and I struggle driving in the rain when it's that bad. So we came home, getting the house ready, getting everything from outside inside, taking things down, all that stuff. And the reason I'm sharing this with you, okay, is because I was highly stressed, and I experienced something that I haven't experienced in a really long time. And that was a little bit of stress eating. And it was fascinating to me because so there's a difference. Okay. And I was curious to see how this was going to come out today. Cause like I said, I don't have an outline or anything. I'm just kind of going off the cuff, and explaining this story, this situation. But it was really fascinating because I was fully aware the entire time, which is very different than how it used to be in the past. So in the past, it would typically be after the stress eat, right? Or after it turned into a binge. Afterwards, when I would be looking back thinking, why did I do that? Oh my goodness, what's wrong with me? Oh, I'm so mad at myself. I'm so full. I feel sick. Okay, that would happen after the stress eat. It was almost like being on autopilot, right? So I would have this stressful day. I would just, you know, be in the kitchen or wherever eating the food. It didn't always turn into a binge, but a lot of times it did. The overeating, the fast, furious eating, the overconsumption. And then afterwards, I would just be so mad at myself. And this time was so different. I mean, first of all, when I say I was stress eating, it's kind of funny to me the way I look at it now, because I mean, it was just different food than my normal. It wasn't even an overeat. I mean, it was definitely not a binge eat. I haven't done that in many years, but it was a stress eat. And what I mean by that is, so we didn't get to the mall, so I took them to Publix instead. Why? We were already on the road. Publix was right there. I said, maybe like a consolation prize. Let's go to Publix. Let's grab something for lunch. And if you want to get a couple snacks, you can. Okay. That was my thought process, because I knew we were probably not going to be going to the store on Friday or potentially Saturday, depending on how things were going to shake out. And by now we all know, well, maybe some of us know, I know, that the storm shifted east. And it hit Atlanta. Atlanta experienced a lot of flooding, and then it went east and severely impacted parts of North Carolina, as you may be aware, based on watching the news. And while we still had, crazy winds, ton of rain, trees down, we lost our power for a few hours on Friday morning. It was nothing that they were anticipating. It was not what we were expecting. And which is what breaks my heart. I mean, I feel like, wow, we were lucky, but there's a whole community, there's communities of people that were not. And it's sad and it's heartbreaking. And so that's where my prayers go to all of those impacted severely. I mean, our power went out for a few hours, as I mentioned. That was nothing. There are some people still without power for days, and it's not anticipated to come back on for more days, or if not weeks. So we did not receive the storm that we thought we were going to get. It didn't hit us in the way that we thought we were preparing for. So anyway, didn't know if we were going to be able to get to the store, is where I'm going with this. Sorry, I'm all over the place today, but I'm going to stay with this because what you're experiencing right now is me. This is Amy. All right. And I don't feel I need to, I don't know, sugarcoat it or put on some front or anything like that. What you see is what you get. And so anyway, I took them to Publix and we got a lot of snacks. And what made me laugh is I said, well, what about ice cream? And I did the same thing when COVID hit back in 2020, when we found out that the schools were closing and I had to take my daughter to clean out her locker. Okay, we had very specific days and times when we had to go clean out her locker. She was in 6th grade at the time. And on our way home from cleaning out the locker, this is before everything shut down. I said, let's go to Publix and get ice cream. Because it's a pandemic. Ice cream, right? Isn't this how most people think? I just find it funny how these moments continue to kind of sneak in, right? And that's kind of where I'm going with this, okay? So if you've stuck around this long, stick around a little bit longer. I swear I'm getting to my point. So Anyway, so here we are. We're at Publix. They get snacks, we get ice cream. I did get a salad from their little sub department, which was quite delicious. And we come home, and I find myself thinking, knowing that I'm going to do a little stress eating. Like, it was full awareness. I wasn't hiding it. I was like, I'm going to stress eat. In fact, I had said to my husband, I'm going to stress eat. Like, I'm going to have some snacks. And I did. And I had my salad, and I had some snacks, and I had some ice cream, and then I ended up baking some cookies. And while nothing was this like overindulgence, I didn't go completely nuts. I didn't make myself sick or anything like that, and it didn't turn into a binge. I knew fully well I was stress eating. I was feeling the stress of the situation, of this storm that was coming, this storm that was looming. I could feel it in my chest. I could feel it in my core. It was like a fuzzy feeling. It was like a sensation. I kind of, what I picture in my head when I feel this sensation, if you remember back in the day when the TV would go off air at, like, midnight or 1 a.m., and then the popcorn on the television, think of Poltergeist. Okay, I am totally dating myself right now, but that fuzzy popcorn feeling on the TV, that's what I imagine. That's like the feeling that I have inside when I get that kind of like stress anxiety sensation. And I knew fully well I was stress eating, and I was okay with it. And what's so amazing to me about this is the fact that I was okay with it. It was almost like a contained stress eat. And the reason that I wanted to bring this to the podcast today is simple, really, is to share that even through all the work that I have done over the last 9 years, okay, healing my relationship with food, healing my relationship with my body, learning to listen to my body, all the things, overcoming binge eating, overcoming emotional eating, there are still moments in this life when I will stress eat. Now, these moments are few and far between. I mean, I just shared the example of 2020 when the pandemic hit, right? We're in now 2024 with Hurricane Helene. 4 years, right? In that process. Yeah, 4 years. Almost exactly, right? Yeah, close. Whatever. So it's been some time, and that 2020 was probably the last time that I can think of where I had a stress eat like this, right? Again, not where it was like this overconsumption, but it was definitely using food to ground to ground that static feeling. And if you're watching this right now, you see me using my hands, right? But that's what it is. And what I want to say about this is, and I don't know that I've shared this on the podcast before, but it's going to go a little something like this. When we think of alcoholics, they're recovering, right? People who overcome like alcoholism, they consider themselves recovering alcoholics, right? And that's for a reason. That's because they know they've done the steps, they've done the work, they've done whatever is entailed to to quit drinking, right? And typically, from what I know, I haven't experienced this personally, but what I know from things I have heard is that they will keep alcohol out of their house. They will, make sure that they don't drink, right, as a recovering alcoholic, because they know that it can just come back at any time, right? Now, as people who are overcoming food addiction, we don't have that ability to remove all the food because we need food to survive, right? So it's a little bit different. But where I'm going with this is I think it is really important to just note, while we can absolutely overcome emotional eating and binge eating and just general overeating, it is helpful, I think, to just acknowledge that there can be moments in life where that habit may occasionally come back. But when it does, it doesn't look the same as it used to. It's not the same intensity. It's not as often, right? So it looks very different. What could have easily been in the past an entire carton of ice cream over, 3 days, along with, a dozen or so cookies and anything and everything else that was in my path, okay, looked very different last week, right? Instead, it was a bowl of ice cream. Instead of just eating it with a spoon out of the container. I can't even tell you the last time I did that. I made cookies. I had a few as opposed to, 12, 13, 14, 15. All right. And I'm not even exaggerating here. Okay. I can remember many, many times where I would make cookies and eat almost a dozen, if not more. And there was the story of my last binge. If you go back in the archives of the podcast and listen to that one, right, where I was feverishly stuffing cookies in my face, that intensity doesn't happen anymore. But I absolutely knew that I was going to stress eat. And I was surprisingly okay with it. It was like I understood. I was like, this is okay. And that's the compassion. Okay. That's the compassionate part. Recognizing that, all right, you're feeling a little anxious right now. It wasn't a little anxious. I was a lot anxious. Okay. I was feeling anxious with everything that was going on, with my husband traveling, with the storm coming, with getting with doing the prep that we needed to do. Right. So yeah, there was that anxiety, and I used food to ground myself. And I do consider that a stress eat because I was eating to ground in, to like relieve that stress, right? To calm myself. Okay. That is emotional eating. And so, yeah, I had a stress eat. And you want to know how that looks now? It's over. It happened. And it was Saturday. It was when it ended. And by Sunday, I was just back to my normal plan. And I find that really fascinating too, because again, this I guess at the end of the day, what this entire episode is about is how it changes when you do the work, when you do the healing, when you face the way that you are with food present day, and you want to change that, and you want to heal that, you want to fix that, okay, and have a different relationship with food. There may be times in life when the old habit resurfaces, but it doesn't look like what it used to look like, okay? And as I mentioned, it's not the same intensity, it's not the same frequency. It's not even the same food necessarily, which is really, really interesting. So, yeah. And what's also really powerful is I'm like weirdly okay with it. It's like not a big deal. Where in the past, as I've shared, this would have been opportunity to beat myself up. Oh, because yeah, I absolutely gained weight. Of course I gained weight. I was eating all foods that I don't normally eat on a regular everyday basis. Oh, I also had some Doritos with my dinner. Because we had Doritos too. Like, these are all foods that I don't normally eat on a regular everyday basis, okay? My food is pretty basic normally because I'm eating things that feel good, so it's a lot of lean proteins, fruits and vegetables. I have probably like 95% of the time is power food for me, with the occasional treat mixed in. And what this was last week was Thursday, Friday, Saturday of more pleasure food than I'm used to. Okay. Doritos, some ice cream, some chocolate chip cookies. And I knew it was a result of the stress and anxiety that I was feeling. So that is definitely stress eating. Okay. not binge eating, not even overeating, but it was stress eating for sure. And in the past, goodness, I would have struggled to get back on track because I would have been so mad at myself. I would have been so frustrated, especially with the weight gain. Holy cow, right? And I'll just tell you, because why not? My weight fluctuated 8 pounds. I was up 8 pounds on Sunday. Fascinating, right? And I'm not mad about it. Can you just imagine this for just a second? Because here's the deal. I know that as soon as I got back to my normal way of eating, I've started to see the scale go down because, again, I step on the scale every day because it's just not an issue for me. I don't stress out about it. I don't beat myself up over my weight anymore, right? That ended a long time ago. Instead, I kind of look at it like I'm handling this like just a responsible adult, right? Okay, I ate more than I normally do. I ate different. I don't want to say more. I ate different than I normally do. I ate things that have more sugar and sodium and more flour. I automatically know that that's going to contribute to my weight on the scale. I know that I did this as a result of feeling stressed and anxious. Check, got it. It's fine. And I also said to myself, okay, it's over. We're okay. Again, thankfully, I'm sorry for anybody who's going through more after Helene. It's devastating. And I will simply get back on track. That's it. That's it. And I've been on track. And I wanted to share, I want to try to share what it is, like what's different, what helps me just get right back on track. And I believe that it is just the consistency in practicing that. It's a couple things. It's the consistency in practicing that. So I now have evidence to know that I can simply just get right back on track. And I do, right? Very easily. So it's that. And it's also reducing the amount of criticism, the amount of negative self-talk. It's quieting that critic that would otherwise have a field day and complaining about all the things I ate and how I was so wrong and how terrible it is and really blowing it up into this dramatic situation. Okay. That doesn't happen anymore. And the way that has stopped is by me having a more compassionate mindset towards myself, which is everything that is fat to fierce. Okay. That's it. So I'm going to wrap this up for this week. I hope that you find this helpful and somewhat enjoyable. And my wish in all of this is for, if you're someone who struggles with food, like you feel like you're addicted, food feels like kryptonite. It feels like you just cannot catch a break or you can't get back on track when you fall down or any of those scenarios, okay? And you're sick of this impacting your life and impacting your weight and you're frustrated with the way you look and all these things and you've got that nasty critic that just keeps shouting and doesn't want to shut up. My hope and my wish for you is that hearing me talk about this and what's possible in overcoming this is helpful and can just shine some light on the fact, like, there's no perfection in this game, okay? There is, I've said before, there's no light switch where it just automatically stops. And even after all the years of work that I've done in this department, I can still experience it on a much different level. And it's not a problem. I don't love myself any less because I chose to stress eat last week. And it was a conscious choice. Isn't that fascinating? Instead of it being like this autopilot response, I consciously knew it was what I was going to do and I was perfectly okay with it. Fascinating, right? Yeah, this is possible. And it feels a heck of a lot better just to know you got your own back, even when you do consciously choose to have a stress eat. All right. that is it for this week, and talk to you next week. Are you ready to take control of your eating, embrace your body, and boost your confidence? Then let's get fierce. Start your Fat to Fierce journey today. Go to amyenglishcc.com for more resources and to book your discovery call.